Hello everyone, so welcome back. This is for purification of the mental actions as described in Buddhism to elevate yourself enough to even spread loving kindness to other beings as described in Metta Sutta. So this one goes in having purification of mental actions have one, two, and three concepts that we have to discuss. And all these concepts, as I've been telling over and over again, they all lie in greed, hate, and delusion path. So in order to, if you get rid of all those three, more you are becoming closer towards light and love. So number one is of mental purification is having the right view on life. So, for example, what do I mean by having the right view? This is actually getting to understand a little bit more about the truth as it is, as said in Buddhist terms, of understanding the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path leading towards Nirvana. So, the right view in this Buddhist teachings is just understanding that there is suffering and there is a reason, the origin of suffering, and there's a cessation to suffering, and then there's this path, the eightfold path that leads to the cessation of this suffering, which is the Noble Eightfold Path that consists of number one is right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So those are the 8 things that leads to the cessation of suffering. So having the right view means you understand that there is suffering, you accept that there is suffering, like you understand, and because it is so sometimes in our world we say, well, it's all unicorn and flowers, but like we all patch up all the suffering and therefore we are not seeing the truth as it is. But like it is so important to see that there is pain too, that is what makes life life. There is pain and also there is happy moments. Life is not all suffering. No, it is all happy, but understanding that there is suffering is important. And therefore, if you don't want suffering, there's a path you can take to get rid of total suffering, which is path towards nirvana, which is giving up all your attachment, purification path, which is this path towards nirvana. So having the right view on life is so important in this mental method of purification. So one of these concepts is also getting rid of the self view. In my understanding, the self view is getting rid of ourself as individuals only. That means you're actually getting rid of your individuality and you're tapping into the unity consciousness. And this unity consciousness, you realize we are all one consciousness. And when you realize we are all one consciousness, you realize we are pretty much extensions of each other, or like one organism in some ways. And so when you realize there's no separate individual, the separate sense of self, the separatedness, we are tapping into the one consciousness. And this realization is quite important to elevate your consciousness to the point that you'll be able to freely spread loving kindness to all beings. So that's why in this meditation of Metta Sutta, we talk about the elevating yourself to get rid of your self view is important. And so we talked about having the right view on life, understanding suffering, and there's the path that take you away from the suffering, which means getting rid of greed, hate, and delusion. So we understand that, there's this path and there is suffering. So for me to say a little bit about what I mean by there is suffering, what I mean by this is that, for example, we can look at it during our birth. It was so painful to your mother. It was so painful, and you were born and crying and cold and covered with, not so lovely goo. So there is unpleasant parts about birth, and of course, maybe you had to go to school, you were bitten by some mosquitoes. In my case, I was, at least, and you probably didn't get to eat too well, and you were squeezed in a bus or something. So you have all these issues that you faced, and that would be suffering. But obviously there's good parts. We don't need to ignore the good parts, because our aim is to see things as it is, not just to cover up saying life is suffering, 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 or life is happy, happy, happy. We are trying to understand that there is happiness and there is also sadness. And some of more of few suffering scenarios would be, like the diseases and the sickness. You feel like life is all good until the point you get some kind of crappy fever or something and have to stay sick. So this physical body can bring upon sickness, not always, and if you're taking care of it pretty well, you don't get sick. But obviously there's aging that will be a little bit hard to deal with. So with aging, you won't be looking towards your skin to wrinkle, but it might not wrinkle if you're able to pour the light in. So there's that. Maybe you'll be great at doing that. So if that happens, then you have a lesser chance of getting wrinkles. But obviously there's wrinkling, and you might lose some taste buds, and you might not taste it as much, and you might just feel pains and aches in your joints. So that will be just like the not so fun parts of life. So pretty much contemplating that, or even death could be suffering, because to death you have to let go of your loved ones, and you have to go and you have to say goodbye to this whole life that you led happily or even unhappily. Maybe if you're unhappy, you'll be like, yay, it's done. But if you weren't happy, if you were happy, then you'll be pretty sad to leave behind all the good things. So in Buddhism, in a nutshell, we talk about birth, aging, sickness, and death, how that is suffering, and all the suffering things in between. So, but yeah, it's not all suffering. Obviously, there are such good things about life, but there is suffering too. And this non-self view, having this right view, part of this right view is having this non-self, not having this separate sense of self is important, like the unity view is important. So that is one of their having the right view of life. So now you understand in the mental actions, understanding the life in a pure way, having the right view, having the correct view, understanding both the pain and the happiness, and understanding we are not separate selves, we are all one. Those are important realizations and thoughts and reflections that you can do mentally, and therefore you're purifying yourself mentally. And number two, one of those purification of your mental alignments that you can do in order to be closer to love and light is actually not coveting, or coveting as in you're attaching yourself and wishing it to be yours. For example, coveting happens when you look into something and then you just like dream about it since then. Like you attach yourself energetically and you like want that to yourself. So it happens subtly and energetically as I see it. Like for example, if you look into a pretty person, like a picture of a pretty person, and suddenly your mind goes to it, and then you'll be like, I want that, and then you just like go attach yourself energetically and try to put it to your vortex or something, just try to manifest it in your life. So that will be us attaching and coveting and wishing it to be yours. So more you understand all these things are not worthy in some sense, because they're not lasting, they're all impermanent, your coveting or your grasping lessen. So that is pretty much the basic goal of Buddhist meditations, to just getting rid of delusion or having the right understanding of things. You're able to let go of things easier, grasp less, and covet less, and attach less. So this way you won't be, every time you see something, you won't be grasping at it energetically. You'll be like, I don't really want it. Maybe you'll be even repulsed after doing some of these meditations that Dr. Lalit's program talk about. So it is quite important that you understand these concepts of how coveting can be detriment, because more you covet, more you desire and more you want. And the desires you have, there's attachments, and probably you're elongating your reincarnation cycle as well. You're all over the place attached, and you're definitely not light. So if you want to be more love and light, you kind of have to give up some things and practice generosity, practice detachment, practice getting rid of delusions, so you're able to understand these better. And if you want to grab onto something that is lasting, there is light to grab onto. Light is quite lasting. As far as I understand, light, love, truth, those are pretty lasting things. And if you want to give up everything and attach yourself to nothing, you can go towards nirvana, which is attachment to nothing and not even another life. You don't want to live another life. But I'm not saying you need to. Nobody needs to unless they really want to. And that has to come on their own understanding and their own wanting. Nobody can force you to go towards nirvana. Yeah, no. So number 3 is not having ill will. I mean, like, nirvana is great if that's what you want. You know, that's all I have to say. Okay, number 3 is not having ill will. So ill will is a subtler thing than more obvious hate or anger. So ill will is pretty much opposite to goodwill. So for example, you don't want something good to happen to that person, or you just don't tolerate them. You just don't like them. You just wish that person didn't exist. Wish that person was not sitting next to you, or in that room. So this is pretty much like you don't like the presence of the other person. Maybe it reflects something negative about that person, reflects something negative about yourself, or you just don't like that person or their consciousness or the things that they've been doing. So this is the subtle, like not liking that person is the ill will. Like not liking that person, want them gone, like want them disappeared. That is ill will. So opposite to that would be lovingly accepting the presence of the other person with unconditional love and kindness. That would be the love will, or not having ill will. So you're not saying things in your head like, why is that person driving so slow? I wish that person would be gone. Or, oh man, why is this person in this room again? Or I just can't tolerate, So like having them just not exist or gone is part of ill will. So as described, these are the 3 mental ways of purification in Buddhist meditations. So I'm going to finish it up quite well because now there's going to be sound at my place. So getting rid of greed, hate, and delusion is our main aims. And number 1 is having the right to view on life, understanding there's suffering, of course, and there's a path to suffering, and getting rid of that identity view is number 1 on the mental section, purification of mental. So what you can do mentally in order to stay in the light. And then also what you can do mentally. Another thing is stop grasping at things, stop coveting, stop attaching and wishing it to be yours. So that would be another one way to get rid of your mental attachments and ways of doing something mentally in order to purify yourself towards the light. And then, of course, mentally is another thing that you can do is spreading ill will. So in order to get rid of that, in order to purify yourself more towards the light, you would be getting rid of ill will. So yeah, that would be it. I hope you understood it, and I will put in links on below, of course, to the original teachings, so you can go explore these teachings even more. And I would highly recommend attending one of their sessions in person, because to tell you the truth, they are freaking amazing. And honestly, you can feel the presence of the kind, loving beings, the noble ones, the arahants in that room. It is amazing to have their presence in there and elevate your consciousness to the point that you're able to grasp higher concepts, because your vibration rises immensely with their presence and their knowledge there. So you'll be able to understand these meditations so much better. So I hope you get the chance to attend one of these teachings. And Dr. Lalit is teaching this all over the world, and he's doing such a great service. So I really hope you get a chance to attend, and they're also free. There's no cost, and it's based on pretty much donation. So I hope you check it out and really use these Buddhist teachings if you want to stay in the light even more, even if you're coming in a Christian or whichever the faith that you might, if that is your intention to purify yourself towards the light and reducing your reincarnation cycle. Well, thank you so much for listening, and Have a fabulous day.